Hello collectors and welcome to another review. This time I will be taking a look at the second set of Godzilla Minimates from Diamond Select Toys. Pretty awesome. This set includes an atomic breath version of Godzilla, Mechagodzilla 1974, Eudora, and Jaguar. So sit back, relax, and let's take a look to see whether or not this set is worth adding into your collection. Alright, so first up we're going to take a look at Atomic Godzilla here. And as you can see, the decals and the details on Godzilla are pretty nicely done. Specifically here on the leg, and you can see on the arms. Very nice. If you look at the face, it's very nice. The pupils are aligned correctly, and there really isn't much to complain about in terms of paint. Even when we go back here to the dorsal plates, because as you can see here, this version of Godzilla has translucent blue dorsal plates, which is very nice. Now, in terms of articulation, Godzilla has a basic swivel at the neck, as you can see here. Shoulders are on ball joints, so you can get the arms to move around pretty nice. Elbows are on swivels or hinges, depending on how you look at things. The wrists are on swivels. Left one on mine is kind of tight. As you can see here, they do move. Now, like the previous Godzilla Minimates, they all use the Minimates body, except for they have this sort of, I guess you could say, sleeve over them. So there is a waist swivel, but you're not going to get too much movement out of there. Ball joint at the hips, so you can get the legs to move around. Mine just pops off like that. And as you can see, it's kind of loose, but you can actually see the ball joint there. Then we have hinges in the knee, so you can get the knees to bend. And then for the ankles, we have what might be a ball joint, but realistically speaking, you're only going to get swivel movement out of there. Now, with this Godzilla, we actually get two accessories. First and foremost, all of the Minimates in this set come with a little stand, which just plugs into the bottom of the feet, like so. Now you can get more support for Godzilla standing. And the other accessory, you see it packaged with it in the box, is the blue atomic breath. And as you can see, there is a hole in Godzilla's mouth, and this breath effect part just plugs in like so. Now, here's the cool part. This is basically just a repainted Godzilla from the first set. As you can see here, they share the exact same sculpt. The paint apps on the atomic version of Godzilla for the mouth, I think, are a little nicer. And the cool part about this is, since the atomic version of Godzilla here features, the same head sculpt as the first Godzilla, if you really want to, look at that, you can get your first Godzilla to use the atomic breath. So all in all, the Godzilla from the second set of Minimates is an improvement, arguably, over the first Godzilla that we get. Though of note, this one likes to fall apart a little bit, as you saw with the leg popping off at the hip. Next up here we have the good old Mechagodzilla. Ah, the Showa era. So great. So, paint on this guy. Pretty awesome. There really doesn't seem to be anything out of line. The sculpt details are fantastic for something in this style and at this scale. I mean, for something only 2, maybe 3 inches at best, I mean, wow, the detailing is great. You can see all the little grooves here on the mechanical parts. It's nice. Going on to the actual little decals and such, you can see the MG here on the arm is nice and crisp. There's really nothing to complain about in this department. I think this guy looks absolutely fantastic. Going on to the articulation, it's basically the same thing as you would expect from the other Godzilla Minimates. Neck is on a swivel, as you can see here. Just spins around like so. Shoulders have a ball joint, as you can see here. Elbows on that swivel hinge type job. You know what I'm talking about. The wrists swivel. There is a swivel in the waist, as you can see here, because there's this like sheath that covers the Minimate's body. And then we have the hinge or swivel in the knee, depending on how you look at things. And once again, we have ball joints in the hips. And then we have the swivels in the ankles. But do take note, Mechagodzilla has these shin pads, so you're not really going to be able to spin the feet around as much as you may like. So that's the only downfall I would say Mechagodzilla has in terms of articulation. Well, considering there's this giant, like, sheath covering the body. And also, as I said before, this guy comes with his own Minimates stand. All you gotta do is just plug it into the bottom of his foot. Next up, we have the largest Godzilla Minimates figure so far, and one of my favorites, Eudora, or Hedora, depending on how you like to pronounce things. Paint, again, like Mechagodzilla, it's awesome. All of the little decal applications here, you can see on the arms and on the legs, it's nicely done. The eyes are pretty nice, except for there's a little bit of a red bleed over here, which isn't that big of an issue considering price point and size, because I mean everything else just kind of balances that out. The sculpt details are once again pretty nice. You can definitely tell it looks very, very sludgy, which is great. So, onto the articulation. Again, you're kind of noticing a trend here. We have ball jointed shoulders. We have that swivel hinge job in the elbow. As you can see here, moves nicely. Yeah, there's technically a swivel for the wrist, but realistically speaking, you're probably not going to get too much use out of it unless you actually pop the hand off and then reposition it like so. So I would not actually try to swivel it around when it's attached to the forearm because you might scratch the decal, which is not good. Again, there is that plastic sheath covering the body, so you do have a little bit of a waist swivel here, but you're not going to be able to get too much movement out of it, so I really wouldn't bother. Foot coming off there. Then at the hips, we have a ball joint, which is relatively loose for me. Same thing with the knees, we have the swivel hinge. And then the ankles are apparently on a swivel, which you could, I guess in theory, pop it off and align it differently, but it's not working too well for me there. So you do have a joint there, but you really can't use it too much. Now, just looking at Eudora right out of the package, you're probably going to look at it and go, well, it looks like he supports a stand, but he doesn't come with one. Well, you actually have to check the package really, really closely because you're going to find an extra stand in there, so that way it actually supports Eudora. It does come with 4 stands. So if you can't find it, you just got to look a little bit harder. And last but not least in the second Minimates set, we have Jet Jaguar, or Jagger, or Jaguar, or Jaguar, if that's how you like to say it. Anyway, so we have Jet Jaguar here, and the paint and decals on this little guy are pretty nice. You can see the black lines here are nice and straight and evenly applied, which you might be saying to yourself, who cares? But you'd be surprised at how easy it is to screw that up. However, on close inspection, as you can see here, there's a little bit of a silver paint blob on his face, which is a little disappointing, but for, again, the price and the size, it's not that big of a deal. Now, the rest of the paint, the blues, the yellows, the reds, and a little bit of orange are pretty nicely done. You can see there on the front. And then we get over here to the back where you can see some of the trademark stuff and whatnot, and you have some sculpt details on the back of Jet Jaguar's head. Pretty nicely done. I gotta say, they did a nice job with this guy. Now, moving on to the articulation, we have a basic neck swivel, as you can see here. We have ball joints in the shoulders, which are only slightly restricted by these shoulder pads in the sense that you can't get them to go up all the way, but it's not really that big of an issue considering most of the other Godzilla Minimates can't really do the same thing. Typical joint there for the elbow, that little swivel or hinge, depending on how you look at things. We have a swivel in the wrist, which is very nice. Now this one, we get full access to that waist swivel, which is great. Which is great to see. Hips, where the thigh meets the body, on a ball joint, as usual. And we have that knee hinge or swivel. And then we have the ankle swivel, which is pretty great. And behind Jet Jaguar in the package, we have one clear display stand, which, as you guessed, just plugs right in to his feet, like so. So you get some extra support. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Minimates, don't expect these guys to be all that large. They're really small because, Minimates. Here they are alongside some of the chibi figures from Bandai America. Here with some Bandai Japan gashapons. Simply for size reference, here are the Minimates alongside 2 standard 6-inch scale Godzilla action figures. And here are the Minimates all lumped together. At least this is all of them so far. So chances are, if you're going to pick these little novelty items up, they're going to be able to fit anywhere in your house. Now, for those of you who skipped out on the first Minimates set, you might not be aware of this neat little gimmick. As you can see, all of these Minimates figures use a generally similar body. They just have plastic coverings over different parts or so on and so forth, just minor variations. Now, the cool thing about this is that if you want to part swap and create some sort of abomination, you're going to be able to do that. So if you have a custom kaiju idea in mind that shares the parts for, well, all of the Godzilla Minimates released so far, you're going to be able to make that dream a reality, which is always pretty neat. So, second set of Godzilla Minimates. Worth it? I'd say yes. For 20 bucks, this isn't a bad set at all. Sure, there are some minor imperfections here and there, like some splotches on Eudora and Jaguar's head, and Godzilla's nails, they could be a little bit better. But realistically speaking, for the price and the size, like I said, it's pretty much forgivable. I really hope that they continue to make more of these because we do have 8 figures in total so far, but the selection is very limited. We need to get more creativity here. King Ghidorah? Anguirus? Huh? Can we get those? So when it's all said and done, if you're interested in little novelty items like the Bandai America Chibis or the Gashapon figures from Bandai Japan, so on and so forth, these are definitely right up your alley and down your gutter. If you are an absolute perfectionist, however, who has to have every single thing neatly and perfectly compacted right in the lines and have absolutely no flaws with absolutely high quality control, maybe this set isn't exactly perfect for you. Regardless though, what you get for 20 bucks is not bad.